Commissioner Waterloo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Acting Premier. Yesterday, New Democrats asked three very simple questions about why the Liberals are choosing to open new HST tax loopholes at the same time as they say the cupboard is bare, that they have to sell off parts of our hydro system. We got a lot of bluster. We didn't get an answer. That's becoming the norm in this place. Does this Liberal government think it is progressive to create new tax loopholes for the wealthiest corporations in the province of Ontario at the same time as selling off moving ahead with Harris-style privatization of our utilities?
Thank you, Acting Premier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Before I answer that question, yesterday I joined with the rest of this House in congratulating people right across Ontario. Over 2,800 council members, 700 trustees were elected, thousands more put their name forward. I know I speak on behalf of the Premier in saying that we're going to work closely with those elected officials. I congratulate the voters as well for participating and making history yesterday. In regards to the question, I think the question started off by talking about tax loopholes. This is what she makes reference to is a restricted tax input credits, which is not a tax loophole. In fact, the only loophole is her reasoning and her logic, Mr. Speaker. We are continuing to do what's necessary to make us competitive and dynamic, and we're going to continue to do so by providing one of the most historic value-added tax systems that makes our businesses competitive, grows our economy, employs people, and that is how we move forward. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Perhaps the problem is that the minister doesn't actually understand what a loophole is. Let's look at the Liberal plan. They say that they need money to invest in transit, even though they have created another loophole in their own Trillium Trust and haven't dedicated a nickel thus far to transit. The Liberals' plan is to privatize local hydro utilities. It does help energy speculators, but means that people on the hook for paying private power profits on top of skyrocketing hydro bills. At the same time, the Liberals are creating brand new HST loopholes. It puts even more into the pockets of the wealthiest corporations but leaves the rest of us falling behind. Can the Acting Premier explain why the so-called progressive plan is squarely focused on helping Bay Street and not the people of this province?
Mr. Speaker, it's all about investing in our future. Exactly. $29 billion is dedicated to transit over the next 10 years. The members opposite voted against that, Mr. Speaker. Yeah. It's also another $100 billion more in infrastructure spending over the next 10 years. Yeah. They voted against that as well. The Trillium Trust was established in a fall economic statement in 2013 to enable us to dedicate those funds that would come from any assets or any other issues that were sold that would be parked in that fund dedicated to transit. That is what's been put forward, Mr. Speaker. And when we talk about loopholes and tax credits, the very nature of their question suggests that we shouldn't be competitive, and we must. And there are things with regards to the CRA and the federal government that prohibit some of what she's asking us to do. What we will do is provide for revenue integrity and continue to invest the money, the taxpayers' money, into our infrastructure.
Thank you. Final supplementary.
So perhaps the problem is that the finance minister doesn't understand what dedicated means, because he certainly avoided the entire premise of that. But instead of closing HST loopholes, they would put money in the Treasury Board every year starting in 2015. You need money for transit. Close the loopholes. Why do the Liberals think it makes more sense to privatize hydro for some short-term cash when they could start by closing planned HST loopholes and create long-term stability for this province?
Okay, Mr. Speaker, there are no tax loopholes. In fact, what we are doing is finding greater integrity by looking, and we made it very clear in the budget, about finding ways to review our tax credits, review our grants. What she makes reference to is an HST component of a restricted tax input, which is not a loophole. What she doesn't also, and I fear that the third party doesn't recognize the importance of investing in public transit. Yeah. They didn't do that, Mr. Speaker. They don't see that as being a priority. We know it is. We'll continue to invest. We've dedicated the funding. That is clear. It's been in the budget, and we'll move forward for the benefit of the people of Ontario.
No question.